everyone, I'm Dom Renna, and the NYR Zone podcast starts right now. And welcome inside this week's edition of the NYR Zone podcast, a very special edition of the NYR Zone podcast as well. It's our 20th episode, and we have a special guest, Kevin DeLury, joining us in the later half of this podcast. But first, we need to get into some business. Looking at the week that was for the New York Rangers since we last spoke last Friday, the Rangers went 2-0 in that week with wins against the Los Angeles Kings and the Detroit Red Wings. I apologize for that. That was a weird slur. And a loss to the Philadelphia Flyers right before the All-Star break. So let's take a look at the game against the Red Wings. And it was such a snooze fest. It really was. I mean, 12:30 game on NBC. You got Mike Emmerich there, Eddie Olczyk, Pierre Maguire, the usual NBC crew. And they usually make, the doc at least usually makes the game entertaining. But that game was just, no one could have made that game entertaining. So basically what happened was both teams came out in a snooze fest. Not a lot of chances. The Rangers got a power play. Nothing really developed there. But that power play, the kill for the Red Wings really woke up the Red Wings, and they outshot the Rangers 7-3 in the first period. Lundqvist had to make some key saves in that period as well, and Vanek hit the post, so some puck luck was involved. Really, the Rangers were unable to generate anything on Jared Coro, who was starting in place of the struggling Peter Mrazek. Both teams combined for a total of 26 shots after 40 minutes. And basically what we've seen here, Coro is a big goaltender, so the Rangers just still can't figure out how to beat a big goaltender. You still saw it with Ben Bishop, and you're seeing it with Coro now. You saw it with Scott Darling against the Blackhawks earlier in the year. So they really needed to figure something out, and they did towards the end. They had to do it, though, without Kevin Hayes, who is out for 2 to 3 weeks now. Missed the rest of the game with a lower body injury. Lundqvist was great. Made some saves on Zetterberg and Helm, forcing overtime where Brady Shea found Matt Zuccarello, who was cherry-picking, and then he was alone on Coro with Miller, passed the puck off to JT Miller, game winner, 1-0 New York, and the Rangers have a 2-game winning streak after that. Then comes the LA Kings game. I did not get to watch most of that game. I have a short little recap for you. 3-2 the final. Brandon Peary scored a goal. Matt Pumple scored in his return, making it 2-0 Rangers. Then Nolan for the Kings made it 2-1. Then Zuccarello scored his first goal in 16 games, making it 3-1 Rangers. And then Clifford with 0.8 seconds remaining in regulation to make it a 3-2 final. Lundqvist made 36 saves on the night, 14 saves in the first period alone. So the Rangers were looking to end the first half of the season on a high note, on a 4-game winning streak, as they faced the Philadelphia Flyers, who had been struggling, and Steve Mason. Rangers came to play in this one. Right out of the gate, they were the dominant team. Michael Grabner had 3 great chances, hit a post once, stopped in front by Mason twice. Nothing one can really do about it. They finished the period with 16 shots in the first against Mason, after putting up a combined total of 17 shots in their previous game against the Kings. The Flyers had absolutely nothing to work with in the first 15 minutes. But then the second period came, and Lundqvist had to make some big saves as well. And special teams basically killed the Rangers in this game. After the game, they are now 0 for 14 on the power play. Steve Mason carried the Flyers in this one, and you just knew that a penalty or a power play was going to determine the outcome of this one. Matt Pumple took a tripping call. Wayne Simmons, the goal, 1-0 Flyers, and the way Steve Mason was playing, that was it. He didn't need anything else. Jacob Voracek threw the puck off of Michael Grabner's foot, went into the back of the net. Mason finished the night 34 saves. Second time this season the Rangers have been shut out. Final score of 2-0. Quick injury update. Kevin Hayes out for 2 to 3 weeks with a lower body injury. Antti Raanta looks like he'll be back after the All-Star break. The Rangers designated Magnus Hellberg for assignment. Pumple, we know, is back. Mark Stahl and Jesper Fast are making progress. And we'll have an interesting take later on with Kevin DeLury about what the Rangers should do when Mark Stahl comes back and trying to keep this D healthy in itself. But now the All-Star break. The Rangers have one representative for the All-Star break, and that is Ryan McDonough for his second year in a row. The Rangers go into the break at 31-17-1 with 63 points. They are in first place for a wild card. And at the season ended today, they will face Montreal. The division and conference leading Washington Capitals have 72 points. So that's pretty much it for the look at how the league's going. It's going to be a very interesting ride from here on out. So only time will tell as to what will really go on. And we welcome in Kevin DeLury inside this week's edition of the NYR Zone podcast. Kevin is definitely no stranger to the Rangers Twitter community. He runs a blog called the Broadway Boo Shirts, and he used to run the New York Rangers blog. Hi, Kevin. How are you doing today?
Good, man. I'm doing real well. Thanks for having me on. I'm definitely a fan of the podcast. I've listened to a couple episodes, and you do a great job.
Oh, thank you. And you do a great job with your work as well. And I guess my first question for you is, what brought you back into the blog world?
Yeah, sure. I had a great time running the New York Rangers blog. Built a over there, and just had a lot of fun covering the Rangers. I'd never done anything like that in the past. I'd always been a huge fan. I'd always check around the different Ranger websites and blogs, and I felt like there wasn't a clearinghouse for Ranger news, so I decided to create one myself. And I'd run it for 7 years, and sometimes you just sort of run out of steam, and I needed to take a step away. Sort of enjoyed watching hockey again, and I decided to come back with the Broadway Boo Shirts, which is a lighter take, on the Rangers, in this polarized world of analytics versus non-analytics and the eye test kind of thing. I think we've gotten away from, what makes hockey fans so great, that sort of sarcastic sense of humor and fun we all have watching the game.
Yeah, definitely. That's something that's important. And one thing you see through running these blogs, at least I've seen, is that you can really see the different opinions through the fan base. And one day you could be in a great mood, and then they lose 2-0 to the Flyers, let's say, like the other day, and the whole world is falling. And that's something we've seen with the play of Henrik Lundqvist this season and his critique. And I guess the biggest question that we need to ask is it fair to expect the norm from Lundqvist, considering his inconsistent play this year?
Yeah, I think we can. I think he's still an elite goaltender in the NHL. He's a tough start to the season, and especially these last couple of weeks, it's gotten even worse. And some have been starting to question if the decline is starting. He's in his middle 30s now. This is usually when goalies start to start their downward trend. So there were a lot of questions, and I agree with people wondering, is this the beginning of the end for Lundqvist? But what people also have to realize is he's been carrying this Rangers defense, which has been average at best his entire career. And this season, there's been breakdown after breakdown. So I think a lot of what's happening in front of him with the defense is sort of hurt his confidence. And you can tell after games and his post-game press conference, I've never seen him so low. And he puts a lot of pressure on himself. I don't think I've ever seen another athlete put as much pressure on himself to win the way he is. But I think the biggest thing so far, and you've seen him getting better and better, is that Vigneault has been giving him consistent started 4 games in a row. And I think it's helped out. He's made a couple of big saves in each game, and you could tell he's getting better and better and getting more and more confidence in himself. And now it's on the defense. The defense has played a little bit better as well, and they need to continue to do that going forward. But yeah, I expect Lundqvist, maybe not to be at the same level he was at when he took the Rangers to the Cup. I mean, that's he was above anything I've ever seen goaltender-wise. But I think he could still be an elite goalie in this league.
Now, going off of that point about the D, can they fix the defense internally, or do you think that it has to be a move outside of the organization to do that?
Yeah, it's tough to say. I mean, right now the defense I don't think gives anyone any kind of confidence. But I think with how deep the Rangers are at forward and you hope he will remain being that they can get away with what they have. Now, it's up to Vigneault to put the right pairings at. And I've had problems with his personnel decisions over the last couple of years, especially when it's dealing with the defense. I mean, when you have an aging core of the defense, I think it makes sense to sit some of these guys every once in a while. Give Girardi a rest, Klein a rest, Stahl a rest, and get a guy like Clendenning in there every once in a while. You got to keep these guys fresh throughout the season. And unfortunately, Vigneault has not been doing that. And I think that's where the defense runs into a lot of problems. You could see Girardi run down. He needs nights off. This guy has been a warrior throughout his entire career for the Rangers. I mean, he's blocked just endless amounts of shots every year. He puts his body on the line every night. And, you're going to need nights off every once in a while. I mean, he played with a cracked kneecap for the second half of the season last year. I mean, it just makes sense to give these guys rest. And I think if Vigneault is able to do that, they will be good enough with how good the forwards are and Lundqvist can be to be dangerous, around playoff time. Now, having said that, is going out and getting a guy like Shattenkirk, a positive move and would make this team even better and even more dangerous as a potential cup contender? Absolutely.
Would you give up a JT Miller in a trade for Shattenkirk? I know that the Blues have asked Boston when they were talking for Pasternak. So is that too much of a price to give up for Shattenkirk, considering he's going to be a UFA this offseason?
Yeah, I think so, 100%. I think you hit the nail on the head there. I wouldn't be giving up a JT Miller or a Hayes or Kreider or whoever, the Blues may be looking for. Because, rumors have shown that Shattenkirk is interested in signing with the Rangers in the offseason. And I know that the window is closing on Lundqvist, and you want to take every shot you can while you still have him at an elite level or close to an elite level. But, I think for the future of the Rangers, I don't think it makes sense to get rid of a Miller to get a guy you could potentially get in a couple of months. I think you sort of bite the bullet. You keep your depth at forward. You don't deal a huge piece, and you wait for Shattenkirk in the offseason. I mean, they could potentially go another way, a different way too. I mean, they could potentially maybe go after a Cam Fowler, who they could probably get for a little cheaper. Maybe they can look to trade some of their minor league talent, maybe a Boo Nieves or a Kovacs, along with a pick or two, whatever Anaheim may also be looking for. So maybe there's other options available for the Rangers as well if they don't decide they want to give up a JT Miller for Shattenkirk. Another thing with Shattenkirk is he's going to ask for a big contract over the summer. I mean, long-term, big-time deal. And while the Rangers have done a great job, Gorton has done a great job opening up some cap space for them to bring in a guy like Shattenkirk at that kind of salary. That's a lot of money to invest in one defenseman that could bring him into his mid-30s after the end of the contract.
Yeah, that's a great point. So would you make a move at the deadline if you're Jeff Gorton? And if it's not going to be Shattenkirk, then who else? I mean, I know you mentioned Cam Fowler, but would you try and go aggressive after a guy like Trouba or Dougie Hamilton in Calgary?
Sure, I think you always have to ask. I mean, if you can maybe get one of those two guys at a cheaper price than you expect. Not that I think it would cost less for those guys either than a JT Miller or a Kreider or Hayes or something along those lines. But I think he should go out and look. And if it makes sense, I guess you go for it. But I would, again, err on the side of caution with giving away that kind of talent. I mean, you saw with the Yandel deal, and they had Yandel for more than a couple of months, and they ended up having him for 2 years. But you gave up a Duclair, who I know he's having a tough year this year, but he's one of the more exciting young players in the league. And you'd hate to see that again, where you're trading away a JT Miller, and there's no guarantee you re-sign Shattenkirk over the summer. So then you lose Shattenkirk, you don't have JT Miller, and then where are you? So I think he has to proceed with caution. I think another area, and I know that the Rangers are stacked at forward, but to me, a lot of what's going on at their forward personnel is very redundant. A lot of the same skill sets. I'd like to see them maybe go out and get a grinding forward at the deadline, a Brandon Dubinsky type player, a Ryan Callahan, Brian Boyle, those kind of guys who are good in the trenches, who will dig a puck out of the corner, who will be good in front of the net, get to a rebound. So I think that they need that kind of presence, especially in the playoffs. A guy who will do all the little things. I don't think they have that person right now, and I think that Gordon should look that way as well.
And you definitely saw that the other night against Philadelphia, especially on the Philadelphia's first goal in the power play. Wayne Simmons right there alone in front of Lundqvist. He went to the net, got the puck behind him. They definitely do not have that.
Yeah, it's something that's definitely missing. I don't think they've had that for, again, the last couple of years. And they've gotten away from that kind of player on the Vigneault. They're more of the speed game, the north-south type players. And I think come playoff times, those are the guys who make the difference. And it's not even just a guy who knows how to fight and hit. It's, even a guy like a Carl Hagelin is like a grinding player who uses his speed to get in the corner, will dig out a puck, will extend a play, make something out of nothing. I think that those kind of players are always the ones that have the most success in the playoffs. And I'd like to see Gordon and add that. And again, that means taking a good player out of the current lineup, whether it's Peary's been struggling, but the skills there, or Pumple. Again, you're going to take a little bit of skill out, but I think in the long term it'll help. But whenever the Rangers have had success, especially in the playoffs, they've had a real dominant fourth line. Dominic Moores and the Brian Boyles, those kind of players make the difference in the playoffs, where you could put them up against the top line, and you're the Rangers are going to see a top line and you assume they're going to make the playoffs, whether it's Pittsburgh or Washington. You're going to need that kind of forward in there to grind down a Crosby or Ovechkin and those kind of players.
Definitely there. You can see that, especially when Brandon Dubinsky was here. He always got under the skin of Ovechkin. But I think that going on with the forwards, can this offense keep up the pace that they were at until this week? I mean, this week they have had trouble scoring goals against Detroit, against Philadelphia. You can even argue against LA, even though they got 3. They had a rough time getting shots on net. Can they keep up what they've done so far this season?
I think so. I think they have enough. Like I said, they have a ton of talent and a ton of depth. So I think they can do it in the regular season, where the game's a little bit more open. The defenses aren't bearing down the way they do in the playoffs, so I think that they can get away with it. But again, I'd like to see that grinding presence, put in there. But their forwards are exciting. I got to tell you, their top 9 is as good as it gets in the NHL. You have a guy like VC who's now stuck on the fourth line, and he's been struggling. But when you're on the fourth line, it's hard to get the offensive chances he was getting when he was up higher in the lineup earlier in the season. So, the top 3 lines are as exciting as you get. Between you have the younger guys like a Buchnevich, and a Miller and a Hayes, these young guys coming through, and then you have the veterans, Nash. So it's a real exciting group of forwards who can do a lot of dynamic things.
So let's look down a long way from now, even though it's not going to feel that long when it comes. Who comes out of the East? Is it someone from the Metro?
You would think so, because that's where the most talent is. But it's going to be a gauntlet to get through that division. To get through Columbus, Pittsburgh, the Capitals, or the Rangers, however that division sort of plays out. You almost want to see the Rangers end the card. So they end up playing, switching over to the Atlantic Division. Now you end up with most likely Montreal in the first round, but I think that they're the much better matchup. Except you got to deal with Carey Price, but they're the much better matchup, and you'd probably want to go through that division rather than the Metro. And the person who ends up coming out of the Metro is going to be pretty beat up. So you wonder if Montreal can get through their Atlantic side of the coin, of the ledger. They may be in better shape, for that Eastern Conference final against the Metro team, who's probably beat up after taking on 2 powerhouse teams. So it'll be interesting to see.
Lastly, when Mark Stahl comes back, who's out? You think Klein, Girardi get the chance to come out, or will it be Clendening?
Yeah, I mean, I'd hate for it to be Clendening because I really think the Shea Clendening pair has been fantastic. I mean, since Vigneault has put these pairs together, I feel like the defense has really calmed down a bit after it got a little hectic again with Lundqvist struggles, which again I think had a lot to do with the defense. And the defense has looked much better these last couple of games. So, but I mean, obviously Stahl is going to come back in the lineup when ready. I think it's going to be Clendening. Unfortunately, I think he, to me, needs to stay in the lineup or at least rotate into the lineup because he brings a dimension that they really don't have on the team, the puck-moving, offensive-minded defenseman. And Shea's there, but he's still is still learning the game a bit. But I like what Clendening brings. You know, he's not Kevin Stevens back there defensively. Or I'm sorry, Scott Stevens, Kevin Stevens. Scott Stevens defensively. So, you know, he has holes defensively in his game, but, you know, I do like what he brings to the table. And I mentioned it early. I would, you know, ultimately, I would like to see a rotation where you get Girardi some rest, you get Klein some rest. Heck, I'd even give McDonough some rest. He's struggled a bit lately as well. You know, again, he's been in the trenches as well these years. And, you know, a couple of nights off from him will do the Rangers well come playoff time.
Yeah, pull the Greg Popovich in the NHL right there. Kevin, thank you so much for joining us. Be sure to follow him on Twitter at Kevin DeLury and visit his blog, BroadwayBoostShirts.blogspot.com. Kevin, thank you for joining us. Hope you can come back on here again some point down in the future. Have a great day and go Rangers.
Thanks, Don. Appreciate it. Anytime you need me.
And that will do it for this week's edition of the NYR Zone. Thank you so much for listening. As always, you guys are the best. We also want to thank Kevin DeLury once again for joining us this week. Have a great week, everyone. Enjoy the All-Star game on Sunday, the skills competition on Saturday, and let's go Rangers.